Have you considered joining interpreting as a profession but don't know where to start? That's how I and many of my colleagues felt when we fell into this rewarding career. If you're at a crossroads in your professional life and wonder if interpreting might be the right path for you, stay tuned. I'm going to share with you how I took an abrupt turn on my career path, which led me to interpreting. It's been well over a decade and I haven't looked back. Bottom line is, if you're interested in joining this profession, I encourage you to take the plunge. When you're ready to do so, feel free to follow the 3 steps in this video to get your journey started. Hi, I'm Marisa Rueda-Will, a certified healthcare interpreter for one of the major medical centers in the U.S. and founder of TICA Interpreter Training and Translations. As a licensed interpreter trainer who's worked with interpreters from a variety of language pairs and skill levels, I'm excited to be here today to tell you if you want to become an interpreter, you can do it. You just need to take the first step. Please note that in this video and all my videos, the opinions I share here are not a reflection of the institution I work for. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get to it. If you're still with me, I'm really excited for you. I hope this video is helpful. Full disclosure, I almost didn't become an interpreter. I was actually on my way to becoming a high school or secondary education Spanish teacher. And then my last year of college, I had the opportunity to do some volunteer interpreting at a free clinic for one of my credits. And I almost chose the ESL classroom, but instead I was really intrigued by interpreting. And it was actually my husband helped me write an email to my professor and ask to be put in the other group, even though it wasn't on my career path at the time. I wrote that email, and honestly, it's changed my life. As soon as I started volunteering at that local free clinic, I knew that was the job for me. Hence, if you want to start the career, take a leap of faith. If you think this may be the right fit for you, I suggest you try it. You start interpreting. And after you've tried it, you find out which field or specialty of interpreting might be the best fit for you. And then go out there and apply for jobs and see what happens. It could be that you find one really easily. So where do you start on this path? Well, first of all, you're probably going to need to volunteer. Like I said, I personally started at a free clinic. Just be proactive. Reach out to perhaps the bilinguals or interpreters at your school district and see if you can meet with them, interview them, shadow them for a day. Same thing with a local nonprofit. Maybe they have a need to have an interpreter from time to time. Offer your services just to see if being part of that conversation is something that you'd like to do as a job moving forward. Observe. For those of you who may not know, court hearings, a lot of them are public, and you can just go and sit and watch. Call your local courthouse, find out if there's going to be a court hearing with an individual who speaks your language, and go and observe. For ASL or sign language interpreters, there's a theory out there called the demand control schema, where they actually just observe English-speaking encounters, regardless of the specialty, to learn some of the terminology and get familiar with the setting. So even if it's not language specific, if it's a setting you're interested in, contact those local organizations and just see if you can get your foot in the door by being present. Again, nonprofits may be a great way to start. They're always looking for people who are eager to volunteer in order to gain knowledge and skills. And you can also just look up any number of things on YouTube, right? Including this video. Google scenarios out there to learn more about the subject matter and see if it might be the right fit for you. And then finally, shadow. So this may be a little bit trickier, but I highly recommend it, especially if you do the other steps and you find out, yes, I am interested in this career. I started doing an internship through my college career center. I was able to get an internship for the institution I currently work for. Basically, during a 1-month period, I shadowed interpreters at the organization. I got to follow them to many encounters. I had to sign confidentiality agreements, obviously, but I learned a lot, and I learned that it was definitely something that I want to do. So regardless of the specialty, whether it be a free clinic or whether you just reach out to a freelance interpreter, get on websites like CCHI, which is the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters, NBCMI, the National Board for Medical Interpreters, or your local state registry for court interpreters. It could even be an ASL interpreter. Find individuals who are either certified or are on the registry for your state to be interpreters. If your state has a registry, I know in the state that I'm in, they do. And reach out to those individuals and just explain, hey, I'm interested in this profession, and I was wondering, first of all, if you could give me any tips, and second of all, if perhaps I could accompany you to an assignment. Now, if that's possible, I would highly recommend it. You can also reach out to different interpreting agencies, see if there's a possibility that you could do an internship for them. So basically, pick up the phone, put yourself out there, and seek the opportunities that are going to be beneficial to you, getting your foot in the door. After you've done that, you kind of narrowed down, hey, I'm really interested in court interpreting, or I'm really interested in medical interpreting or community interpreting. I'd really like to work for the school district or in the educational field, or, I really want to go back to school. I really want to get to that high level conference interpreting. Start training your brain, okay, for whatever that specialty is, because there is so much to learn out there. I think it's a little bit easier and less overwhelming if you just focus on a specific subject. Whether or not that ends up being the career that you have for the rest of your life, start reading about it, whether it be like scientific articles, whether you find a book on the internet related to the subject. It doesn't necessarily have to be about interpreting. Just start getting some of that terminology, some of the lingo, familiarizing yourself with some of the different situations. I would recommend reading from a newspaper in English and in your B language, or the language you'll be interpreting in, every day. Even write down a paragraph, copy it just to get familiar with terms. Just start training your brain to increase that fluency in the subject matter that you want to specialize in. And then research it. After you get a little bit of a better base, find specific dictionaries, find other tools. That Holly Mickelson, for instance, from the ACIBO organization, has a lot of great tools out there to specifically help you train as an interpreter. I purchased one of her books, The Interpreter's RX, many moons ago. It was, like $60, and it actually came with CDs. Like, who gets CDs anymore, right? But I'll tell you what, I used it to prepare for my certification exam when that became available, and I've lent it to so many interpreters who have found it incredibly useful. There are a lot of really affordable resources out there that, if you know how to use them, right, so not just studying, but studying smart, can be really helpful at a really affordable price. Because I understand life is expensive and people have busy lives, and especially if you're making the switch to this career, you have to be cognizant of the amount of time that you're investing into it. Okay? So that being said, after you've done the research, find out which tools are going to be the best for you, ready yourself. Take a little bit of time out of each day, just 15, 30 minutes, especially if you've already contacted somebody from one of the earlier steps, reaching out, shadowing, doing an internship. You're in a great place because, just reach out to them and ask them to give you a little bit of feedback on your work. Reflecting as an interpreter is actually one of the later skills that comes along. So just in order to know, hey, I'm actually studying and preparing in the right way, reach out and ask people to help you. If you want more suggestions or just have another person listening into what you're working on, please check out my website, TICA trainingandtranslations.com. And then finally, apply, right? You might not feel ready. In fact, when I entered the profession, I did not feel 100% ready. And there's a saying in the industry that in order for an interpreter to feel completely competent, at least from an ASL perspective, from conversations that I've had, it takes about 7 years, right, for that interpreter to really come into their own professionally. So figure out what kind of interpreter you want to be. Do you want to be a staff interpreter? So working only for one institution all the time, day in, day out. Do you want to do freelance? So give yourself a little bit more flexibility. Maybe be a contractor for several different agencies, or work more on your own schedule. Figure that out and then find the right fit for you. So what is that institution or private company or agency that you think would be a really great fit for you, at least as a starting point? Is it a local organization? Do you want to work on more of a national level? Are you looking for a larger vendor who maybe has more availability of hours and looking for that staff? Or even an international level, maybe you're not even located in the country that you want to work for. I know, for instance, in the United States, a lot of the larger vendors who lowball their interpreters a little bit, so be mindful of that when getting offered a job. Actually service patients, could be working in countries other than the U.S. and are actually interpreting for U.S. clients and patients on a regular basis. So even if you're not in the U.S. or I believe even a U.S. citizen, you can still find a really great interpreting job and at least get your foot in the door to work yourself up. So after you've decided which organization and what kind of an interpreter you want to be, go ahead and start preparing yourself for that interview. So don't be at all surprised if they give you role plays and they want you to understand the basics of interpreting ethics and standards. I know I've mentioned in previous videos about this general 40-hour training that does provide a lot of that information. Go out and learn at least from the National Council on Interpreting in Healthcare, if you're doing healthcare, or from the NAJIT, N-A-J-I-T, for judiciary interpreters and translators, or legal in other terms. What are the ethics and standards out there? Familiarize yourself with those, and then practice some role-playing and scenarios to really feel a little more confident in the actual interpreting aspect before you go in for that interview or apply online. And then research the organization. Don't just go with the first organization that you come across. Try to find one that has a pretty good reputation. There are some groups out there, Facebook for instance, and other platforms where interpreters and translators really support each other. Get out there, look for those organizations. If you have questions about a certain company you might want to ask, it's likely interpreters have had experience with them and can kind of help you decide whether or not that would be a good fit for you. And then compare those options before accepting any jobs. Now that doesn't mean that you can't apply for several jobs, but don't go for the first job unless you feel like it's really the right fit for you. Explore your options a little bit and find the job that feels right. I'm honored to be able to share any of my experience with you. I hope it's been helpful. If there's anything that I can help you with, please visit my website, tikatrainingandtranslations.com. And I wish you all well on your interpreting journeys. Stay tuned for future episodes, and I will see you then.